There I was, standing in the back of that church, watching him about to marry her. My voice was the only weapon I had left. So I sang, our song, the one he wrote for me. And when every head turned, they saw what I was holding. His daughter, with his eyes. Before I tell you how I ended up crashing a billionaire's wedding with our secret child, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single moment of this story. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. My name is Taylor Morrison, and 6 years ago, I was a completely different woman. I was 26, living in a cramped Atlanta apartment, teaching piano lessons to kids during the day and singing at open mic nights whenever I could. I had dreams bigger than my bank account and a voice that people said could move mountains. What I didn't have was any idea that I was about to meet the man who would change my life in ways I never imagined, both beautiful and devastating. His name was Christopher Laurent. Back then, he wasn't the C.J. Laurent you see on magazine covers or entertainment news. He was just Chris, this gorgeous, passionate man who lived 3 floors below me, making beats in his apartment until 3 in the morning. I'd bang on his door sometimes, asking him to turn it down. The 3rd time I knocked, he opened the door with this smile and said, "Or you could come in and sing over this track I'm working on." I should have walked away. God, I wish I had walked away. But I didn't. I walked into that apartment, and I walked into a love story that I thought would last forever. We were magic together. His production, my voice. We'd stay up all night creating music, talking about the empire we were going to build. He'd play me rough beats, and I'd hum melodies until we found the perfect combination. We wrote dozens of songs together. He told me I was his muse, his inspiration, the reason he could create the way he did. We were broke, eating ramen noodles and sharing dreams, but I was happier than I'd ever been. Christopher made me believe that love and art were enough, that we could conquer the world as long as we had each other. Things started changing about a year into our relationship. Christopher got noticed by some investors who wanted to back him in starting a real production company. Real money, real connections, the kind of opportunity he'd been praying for. I was so proud of him. I remember the night he told me, how we danced around his apartment, laughing and crying because finally, our dreams were coming true. But there was something he didn't tell me right away. The main investor had a daughter. Her name was Vanessa Whitmore, and she was everything I wasn't. She came from money, went to the right schools, knew all the right people. She was polished and connected, and her father made it very clear that Christopher's success would depend on how well he could fit into their world. I started noticing the changes slowly. Christopher began missing our studio sessions. He'd say he was in meetings, networking events, things he needed to do for the business. I understood, or at least I tried to, but then I'd see photos online of him at fancy restaurants and industry parties, and Vanessa was always there beside him. When I asked about it, he'd kiss my forehead and say, "Baby, it's just business. You know you're the one I love. This is all for us, for our future." I wanted to believe him so badly that I ignored every red flag waving right in front of my face. The distance grew. He stopped coming by my apartment, stopped calling as much. When we did see each other, he seemed distracted, like his mind was somewhere else. I could feel him slipping away, but I held on tighter, thinking if I just loved him enough, if I just supported him enough, he'd remember what we had. Then I found out I was pregnant. I took 3 tests, all positive, and I sat on my bathroom floor crying tears of joy and terror. This wasn't how we'd planned it, but it felt right. It felt like maybe this was exactly what we needed to remember what was important. I planned this whole surprise. I was going to tell him at the studio where we first created music together. I bought a little onesie that said "Future Producer" and put it in a gift box. I walked into that studio with hope in my heart, ready to start our next chapter together. Instead, I found Christopher with Vanessa, and they weren't discussing business. They were wrapped around each other, kissing. And when they heard me come in, the look on his face wasn't guilt. It was annoyance, like I was interrupting something important. I stood there, frozen, holding that stupid gift box. Vanessa looked at me with this mixture of pity and satisfaction, and Christopher had the nerve to say, "Taylor, this isn't what it looks like." But it was exactly what it looked like. When I asked him to explain, when I begged him to tell me this wasn't real, he sighed like I was exhausting him. He said, "I can't do this anymore. Vanessa can give me the life I need. She understands this world. You're just a reminder of where I came from, and I need to move forward." I wanted to tell him about the baby right then. I wanted to throw it in his face, make him feel something, anything. But the words died in my throat because I realized something devastating. He didn't love me anymore. Maybe he never really did. Maybe I was just convenient until something better came along. So I turned around and walked out of that studio, and I didn't look back. I tried reaching out to him over the next few weeks. I called, I texted, I even went to his new apartment. But Christopher had moved on completely. He blocked my number, blocked me on everything. Then his lawyer sent me a cease and desist letter, threatening legal action if I continued to harass him. That's when I made my decision. I would have this baby, and I would raise her without him. He made his choice, and I would make mine. My daughter would never know the pain of having a father who didn't want her. I named her Hope because that's what she gave me when everything else fell apart. She was born with Christopher's eyes, his smile, his everything. Every time I looked at her, I saw him, and it hurt, but I also saw my strength. I worked 3 jobs while teaching music lessons, barely making ends meet, but we survived. Hope was happy and healthy and loved, and that was enough. I told myself it was enough. Meanwhile, Christopher became C.J. Laurent, this massive name in the entertainment world. His production company exploded. He was producing for the biggest artists, making millions, living this glamorous life with Vanessa by his side. I'd see them in magazines, on social media, looking perfect together. 2 years ago, he proposed to her at some exclusive resort in the Maldives. The photos were everywhere. And every time I saw them, I felt this anger burning in my chest because he got everything. He abandoned us and got rewarded with the world, while I was struggling to pay rent and keep Hope fed. Hope started asking about her father when she turned 4. "Mommy, where's my daddy? Why don't I have one?" I'd tell her that some families look different, that she had me and that was enough. But I could see it in her eyes that she knew something was missing. Then, a few months ago, Hope got sick. Nothing life-threatening, but she needed a procedure, and our insurance denied coverage. The medical bills started piling up, and I was drowning. I worked extra shifts, sold everything I could, but it wasn't enough. That's when I saw the announcement. Christopher and Vanessa were getting married in 3 weeks at some estate in Malibu. The photos showed this over-the-top wedding, probably costing more than I'd make in 10 years. And something inside me snapped. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about the injustice of it all. He got to live this perfect life while his daughter struggled, while I struggled, and he didn't even know she existed. My best friend Angela said, "Girl, that man needs to face what he did. He needs to know." She was right. I didn't plan to make a scene. I just wanted him to see Hope, to understand what he'd abandoned. Angela worked for the catering company handling the wedding, and she got me in as extra staff. The day of the wedding, I dressed Hope in her prettiest dress, and we drove to Malibu. The estate was massive, the kind of place you see in movies. There were flowers everywhere, string quartets playing, guests in designer clothes. It was beautiful and excessive and everything I knew it would be. We slipped into the back of the church as the ceremony started. Hope held my hand, confused about where we were, and I watched Christopher standing at that altar. He looked older, richer, but there was something in his eyes that looked empty. Vanessa walked down the aisle looking like a princess, and I felt sick. The pastor went through the ceremony, and when he got to that part, "If anyone has any reason these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace." I felt Angela squeeze my shoulder. I stood up. The sound of me standing echoed through that silent church, and every single head turned. I saw Christopher's face change from confusion to recognition to absolute horror. Hope stood beside me, her little hand in mine, and I opened my mouth and started to sing. No music, no microphone, just my voice filling that space. I sang the song Christopher wrote for me 6 years ago, the one he said captured everything he felt about us. Through broken dreams and midnight skies, I see forever in your eyes. My voice cracked on some notes because I was crying, but I kept singing. Every word was a memory, every note was pain and love and everything we'd lost. When I finished, the silence was deafening. Vanessa was staring at me with her mouth open. Christopher looked like he might pass out. I took a breath and said, "Christopher, I need you to look at her. Really look at her." I gently pushed Hope forward, and she stepped into the aisle, this beautiful 5-year-old girl with her father's face. Vanessa's voice cut through the silence. "What is this? Who are you?" But Christopher couldn't speak. He was staring at Hope like he was seeing a ghost. I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "This is Hope Laurent Morrison. She's 5 years old, and she's been asking me about her daddy." The church erupted. People started talking, phones came out. Vanessa was screaming at Christopher, asking if this was true. Security started moving toward me, but Christopher held up his hand and said, "Wait. Don't touch her." His voice was shaking. He walked down from the altar, and every step he took toward us felt like an eternity. When he got close, Hope looked up at him with those innocent eyes and said, "Are you my daddy? You look like me." I watched Christopher break. This powerful, rich man who had everything just crumbled. Tears ran down his face, and he fell to his knees in front of Hope. He looked at me, and I saw everything in that look: regret, shame, loss, recognition. He whispered, "Taylor, I didn't know. You have to believe me, I didn't know." I said, "You didn't want to know, there's a difference." What happened next was chaos. Vanessa called off the wedding right there, screaming at Christopher in front of everyone. Guests were filming, gossiping, the whole thing was falling apart. Christopher asked if we could talk privately, just the 3 of us. We went to a small room off the chapel, and for the first time in 5 years, Christopher met his daughter. She told him about her favorite color, her stuffed animals, how she loved music just like Mommy. She asked him questions with that pure, honest curiosity that kids have, and he answered each one while crying. He apologized to me, said he'd been a coward, that the pressure and the money and everything had made him into someone he wasn't proud of. He said he wanted to make it right, wanted to be in Hope's life, wanted to support us. I looked at this man I once loved more than anything and said, "You don't get to be a hero now, Christopher. You don't get to ride in and save the day. You get to show up every single day and prove that you've changed. You do it for her, not for me. I don't need you anymore. But she deserves a father." That was 6 months ago. Christopher did call off the wedding. His reputation took a hit when the videos went viral, people calling him out for abandoning his child. But he's been showing up for Hope. Supervised visits at first, then gradually more time. He set up child support, paid Hope's medical bills, set up a trust fund for her future. He's trying, and I can see that Hope is starting to love him, carefully, the way kids do when they're not sure if it's safe yet. As for me, I'm still processing everything. Some days I'm angry that it took a public confrontation for him to step up. Some days I'm grateful that Hope has her father now. Most days I'm just tired. But I'm also proud. Proud that I raised this incredible little girl on my own. Proud that I found the courage to stand up and demand what we deserved. Proud that I used my voice, literally and figuratively, to change our story. Christopher lost Vanessa and the perfect life he'd built with her. He lost respect from a lot of people who saw him for what he really was. But he gained something he didn't even know was missing: his daughter, his real family. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't walked into that church. If I'd stayed silent, stayed hidden, kept Hope away from him forever. Part of me thinks it would have been easier, but then I see Hope's face light up when Christopher picks her up for their weekend together, and I know I made the right choice. People ask me if I regret how it happened, if I wish I'd done it differently. The truth is, I don't know. Maybe I should have told him about hope years ago. Maybe I should have fought harder when he pushed me away. Or maybe everything happened exactly as it needed to. All I know is that I walked into that church with nothing but my voice and the truth, and I walked out with my daughter knowing her worth. I taught her that we don't beg for what we deserve. We demand it. We take up space. We make ourselves heard. This isn't a fairy tale. Christopher and I aren't getting back together. That love died a long time ago, killed by his choices and my hurt. But we're building something new, something better. We're co-parenting, learning how to put hope first, even when it's uncomfortable. And Hope, my beautiful, strong, brilliant girl, she's thriving. She knows she's loved by both of us now, even if we're not together. So that's my story. The story of how I crashed a billionaire's wedding with our secret child and changed all of our lives forever. It's messy and complicated and not at all what I thought my life would look like, but it's real, and it's mine, and I wouldn't change it. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me, would you have done the same thing? And subscribe because I've got more real-life stories coming your way. Remember, never let anyone make you feel small for demanding what you and your child deserve. I'm Taylor, and I'll see you in the next one.